So this is the Khoodeelaar television channel, part C, timed at 21:15 hours GMT, starting a few minutes later than that. This will be concentrating on the report that was published by several outlets in October and has been published also about 3 days ago, about the death of a woman from the Caribbean whose decomposed body, was found 2 years after she died in Newham, London Borough of Newham. Lillian John Baptiste. And we shall be talking about the incident in November 2018 in the Canning Town area also, where there was a meeting attended by Philip Alston. Philip Alston attended the meeting, and let's see where the Independent Online has got that story. So the headline to the piece Independent Online, independent.co.uk, is mother describes being forced to drink her baby's milk. Now this is the piece byline to Mayor Bullman. During a packed-out meeting in Newham, East London, Philip Alston heard directly from migrant women, people with disabilities, and domestic let's see this. I was in my slippers. It was so cold. I plucked up the courage to ask them, to say, I'm hungry. I have a baby. But they said, we can't give you anything. I had to drink my baby's milk. Now, Mayor Bullman is Social Affairs Correspondent, Tuesday, 13th of November, 2018. And posting time is 13:59 hours. Underneath that is a picture showing Roxana Fiers speaking to the meeting. And the caption to that picture: after hearing the witness statements, Newham Mayor Roxana Fiers apologized on behalf of the council. And the picture was taken by Mayor Bullman. People suffering extreme levels of deprivation in London have told the UN's poverty envoy how government-inflicted austerity has left them homeless, hungry, and at times forced into exploitation. Now, that is an absolute lie, because immediately before and after this particular paragraph of lies, it says, during a packed-out meeting in Newham, East London, Philip Alston heard directly from migrant women, people with disabilities, and domestic abuse survivors. Now, this was about Newham Council behavior, not government. In one highly charged account, a West African mother with a baby strapped to her back explained through tears how she had to wait for 20 hours outside social services after fleeing an abusive relationship, during which she became so hungry she had to drink her child's milk. Other stories included a mentally unwell man who was fined for making a mistake on his universal credit application, families with young children forced to live in flea infested houses, and a heavily pregnant woman having to sleep rough in a park. The UN Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights visited one of the poorest boroughs in the capital as part of his 2 week tour of Britain to investigate the impact of the rollout of universal credit, child poverty, and Brexit on people living there. Now, this is nothing to do with Newham. Newham Social Services was not made to be employing cruel social services people. Jane Williams of the Magpie Project, etc., all these rubbish. Now, let's go to the bit about Roxana Fiers. Where is Roxana Fiers' apology? After hearing the witness statements, Newham's Mayor Roxana Fiers said, "Can I just apologize on behalf of myself as Mayor of Newham and on behalf of the Council that you experienced that treatment at the hands of people that we employ? It shouldn't have happened." Now, what we have to do is to update that by looking at the events surrounding the discovery of the body of this woman from the Caribbean who whose decomposed body was found 2 years after she died in Newham. What did social services do to help her? The account that the social services were responsible is very, very thin. The reference to the social services and even the police failures are very thin. I will come to that in a minute. The post that I have just done on Twitter reads as follows. Has Roxana Fiers looked at the role of social services in Newham after she apologized for their behavior, as revealed by the mum at the meeting held in Canning Town in November 2018? And has Roxana Fiers linked the social services employees' role? Lillian John Baptiste. Now we shall come to that in detail after locating the picture that I took of Roxana Fiers on the 17th of December 2022 at the Stratford Library. As the picture, which is captioned, the Muhammad Haque world exclusive original picture of Roxana Fiers, Stratford, London, UK, Saturday, 17th of December 2022. Now, let's go back to Lillian John Baptiste. So this was in February. On the Daily Mirror. And then there is this Guardian series, which is not connected to the Guardian newspaper, but which 5 days ago. And on the 8th of October 2022, Newham Voices posted this item. Lillian John Baptiste lay dead in her home for 2 years. Now, there is no mention in the Newham Voices piece about Lillian John Baptiste of the report in the Independent on the 13th of November 2018 about the West African mother who was told by Newham Social Services they could not help her with the food. She was hungry and she was in her slippers and she was desperate for food and she was ignored by the Newham Social Services. And what Roxana Fiers did at that meeting held in November 2018 is worth noting as a part of the updater here. So let's go back to So the headline on the Independent on the 13th of November 2018 read, Mother describes being forced. Mother describes being forced to drink her baby's milk as people living with poverty come forward to tell you and Amber their stories. Now, this is not this is not a truthful heading. Why? Because this is a story about Newham Council failure. It should not be passed as if Newham was not failing specifically in the way that it did fail and has been caught failing again about Lillian John Baptiste. Now, here is the quotation from Roxana Fields, which is what I'm looking for. The woman said, the woman who addressed the meeting with her baby strapped to her back explained how, when she did finally pluck up the courage to escape, the police directed her to social services. The police directed her to social services, Newham Social Services, where she was left waiting outside in the cold with her child for 20 hours with no food. And she is quoted, I was in my slippers. It was so cold. I plucked up the courage to ask them, that is the social services, to say, I am hungry. I have a baby. But they said, we can't give you anything. I had to drink my baby's milk, she said. Another woman told how she fled her home country in Africa because her uncle was raping her, but received no support on arriving in Britain with her baby and was subsequently forced to live with a man who sexually abused her because he was prepared to house them. When she finally left him, she said she was given no help from this council and had to rely on friends and almost nothing to live. The woman who became pregnant with the abusive man's baby told of one occasion where she had to sleep rough when she was 6 months pregnant. Mr. Alston also heard stories of mentally and physically disabled people who had been hounded by the Department for Work and Pensions every day. One woman, a live-in carer aged 64, reportedly took 7 attempts to fill out the universal credit application, which can only be done online. She had to wait, she had no Wi-Fi at home. She had the use she had the use the library, but with library closures impacting our communities, it's incredibly difficult to access benefits, said a spokesperson for a disability campaign group. Due to job center closures across the country, she had to take 2 bus journeys to get to Bromley. She had to borrow the money from her landlord. Due to payment delays in her claim, she had to borrow money of her landlord to eat. She hadn't eaten for a week when she came to us, and so on. So this is the very end of the piece by May Bullman, where it says, after hearing the witness statements, Newham's mayor, Roxana Fiaz, said, can I just apologize on behalf of myself as mayor of Newham and on behalf of the council that you experienced that treatment at the hands of people that we employ? It shouldn't have happened now. Obviously, it shouldn't have happened. It should never have happened anywhere, but it is happening in Newham. And it has happened to Lillian John Baptiste. So let's see what Ruxana Fiaz has to say about this. We are posting this as part of the evidence that we shall be using in context to diagnose the Newham Voices event on the 17th. Newham Voices event on the 17th that Ruxana Fiaz attended. So this is the piece that we are putting on there. Can I just apologize on behalf of myself as mayor of Newham and on behalf of the council that you experienced that treatment at the hands of people that we employ? Now, how many people has Newham Council looked at? How many people's behavior towards members of the community in Newham has Roxana Fiaz looked at since November 2018? November 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22. It's more than 4 years now. How many people's behavior, how many Newham Council social services employees' behavior has Ruxana Fiaz looked at? Because this was not a question that could have been put to her because she left the meeting on the 17th of December 2022 before the formal opportunity came for any comment to make. But when I attempted to make comments and I was about to refer to this incident, I was told by about 10 of the supporters of the Neom voices that I should write a comment. Now, I will write a comment, of course. So the Neom Voices meeting on the 17th of December, held at the Stratford Library within the allocated time of 10 to 12. That meeting was falsely publicized because it had not mentioned the fact that Roxana Fiaz would be the chief guest, which is what effectively she was treated as. And then there was a man who spoke before her, introducing her, called her his boss. So it was like a kind of insider meeting. It wasn't a public meeting, really, although it was falsely publicized as a public meeting. And when I started to comment, as I said, my comment was interrupted by about 6, 7, 8, or 9, or even 10 people, including Adrian White, who said to me that I should write a comment. Now, what was the point of asking people to come along to a meeting to talk if they were to be told to write a comment instead of talking? And I think the reason why Adrian White and others got concerned about my speaking at all was that I would let the truth be out. I would talk about Ruxana Fiaz being reported on the Independent by May Bullman, dated the 13th of November 2018, about apologizing for the behavior of Neom Social Services, the cruel behavior, the depraved behavior of the Neom Social Services personnel concerned towards this woman, the mother from West Africa, who said that she was forced to wait for 20 hours outside the social services in the very, very deep cold. What kind of behavior is that? And Philip Alston is wrong to say that this is to do with the UK central government department. Of course, the central government department is responsible for lots of hardship and so on. But this was nothing to do with the central government department. This was to do with the Newham Council employing bullies and thugs and cruel, depraved individuals under the cover of social services. This particular post and this particular broadcast will be followed by a separate detailed questionnaire that will be published. It will be an open questionnaire to Roxana Fiaz, and it will be headlined about Lillian John Baptiste. Now, let's go back to the most recent item about Lillian John Baptiste. This is the one that the Guardian series has published in the last few days. This is not just about Miss Baptiste, but some others. Throughout 2022, our investigations unit reported on a series of failures by NHS trusts. They were often revealed in court hearings over patients' deaths, covered by no other journalists. So, this is something that has to be examined as well. Why no other journalists covered these? A coroner declined to hold an inquest because a pathologist said she had died from diabetes or alcohol abuse. But Sophie, this is one of the victims, was a teetotaler. She didn't drink and did not have diabetes. After we, that is the Waltham, the Guardian series, reported this anomaly, the coroner ordered an inquest after all, where staff from the Northeast London NHS Foundation Trust were called to testify. Sophia, a schizophrenia patient who needed regular antipsychotic injections, was meant to be monitored by a care coordinator. But testified Northeast London Trust Assistant Director Arvin Moronzi, she had no coordinator for months because the trust was so understaffed that it was flagged as a risk. During this time, Sophia was mistakenly left off the register for the injection, so nobody noticed when she missed it. By the time NELFT realized and looked for her, she had already died. She died from high levels of acid in her blood, which can be caused by a period of starvation. So she died of starvation. Sophia had told her mum that she was surviving on one sandwich a day after her benefits were wrongly axed. None of this would have been heard in court without our initial reporting. Northeast London FT said it was implementing learning as a result of Sophia's death. Fuck them. Fuck them. The shits. Sophia's case made us look more closely at Northeast London Foundation Trust. An inquest into the death of Louise Allen from Hawker Place, Walthamstow, had evidence that Northeast London FT had been understaffed for years. Assistant Director Robin Sukan said it already employed more people than its budget allowed, but even that was not enough. There is a shortage of social workers, occupational therapists, even doctors, he said. Two coordinators gave up Louise's case, unable to cope with their caseloads. Persistent signs that she might take her own life were missed. She died in June 2021. Robert Burrills of Petersfield Avenue, Harold Hill, took his life in January 2022. He was meant to be closely monitored, but nobody at Northeast London Foundation Trust contacted him for 9 weeks. Coroner Nadia Parsod raised formal concerns. Northeast London FT said it would reflect on the coroner's findings to ensure that the quality of care at the trust continues to improve. It doesn't continue to, it wasn't improving at all, let alone continuing. In a report, she said, Northeast London FT repeatedly asserted that Mrs. Wolfe had sufficient mental capacity to refuse its help, but in a report after she died, it admitted she may not have done. Northeast London FT's lawyer accepted a number of shortcomings in care, including a failure to carry out a capacity test. That inquest is pending. Despite concerns raised in these hearings, the Care Quality Commission upgraded NELFT in autumn to a good rating. So the Care Quality Commission is itself complicit in the murderous neglect. Neom case exposed failures by another mental health trust. Ex-nurse Lillian John Baptiste is believed to have died in June 2019, aged 73. Now, that was late 2019, sorry, not in June, in late 2019, which would be about a year after Ruxana Fiaz, mayor of Newham, apologized at the meeting attended by the UN poverty envoy Philip Alston in Canning and Lillian John Baptiste died in Canning but her date of death is unknown. She was mummified by the time she was found in February 2022. She led for more than a year at her flat in Rymil Street, Canning Town. Mrs. John Baptiste had schizoaffective disorder and was known not to properly care for herself or comply with treatment during relapses. But when she did not answer phone calls from East London NHS Foundation Trust in late 2019 and early 2020, it simply struck her off instead of investigating. Evidence suggested she may have still been alive when those calls began, but was likely dead by the time she was struck off. Coroner Graham Arbine called the case scandalous and shocking. East London Foundation Trust expressed sincere condolences and said it was thoroughly reviewing the case. Fuck them. So there is this piece about, and they're inviting people to send any information. If you have a story for the News Quest Investigations Unit in London, email Charles Thompson, newsquest.co.uk. This is a piece by News Quest in the Guardian series. All right, so what is Roxana Fayaz saying? Roxana Fayaz has to get to the bottom of this case of Miss Baptiste and tell the truth to the public as to what the council did that contributed to her being dead. So what Roxana Fias did and what Philip Alston did at that meeting in November 2018 was to really do a kind of propaganda piece because Roxana Fias, by staging that apology, created the impression, at least in her own mind, that that apology was the answer to the deadly failures and negligence and cruelty and depravity shown by the Neom Council Social Services. Who monitors the social services in Neom? We are ending this particular edition